Alright, so hey there guys, my name is Mohit Zaman and I am the examiner for the English as a Second Language of 0511 Cambridge IGCSE Paper 1. And so without any further ado, let's get into it then. So the first question from 1 to 6 derives from the exercise 1, which states from the extract of learning to make pottery, journalist Amira Okufar writes about her experience. So going through this passage, we got to know that I had always admired the beautiful bowls and cups in the craft shop near my office, and often wondering how they were made. When a friend mentioned that a local artist was running an 8-week evening course in pottery, I immediately booked a place. The course description said it was ideal for reducing stress, but I was more interested in learning a practical skill that I could use to make gifts for my family. Well, before starting, I did some research into the history of pottery. The word ceramics comes from the ancient Greek word keramos, meaning pottery is clay. Pottery is considered to be one of the oldest human inventions, with evidence of clay pots dating back at least 20,000 years. The technique used of spinning wheel to shape clay was developed in Mesopotamia around 4000 BC, and this method, known as throwing, is still widely used today. Another well-known technique involved building pots by rolling clay into long, thin pieces and coiling them on top of each other. Our instructor, Tomoko, told that was what we would learn first, as it requires no special equipment. So that's how the extract talks about. Third, fourth are pretty self-explanatory. Explanatory. So here we have Araz's script. He did quite well. And moving into the first question is that what does the ancient Greek word keramos mean? And it refers to the pottery's clay. Then the next question says, what is the name of the technique that use of spinning? It's throwing. Exactly what he has written. Which technique did the group learn first? And it mentions how the building pots by rolling clay into the long thin pieces and coiling them together was the first technique of how to go through, which is what we read. Moving to the third and fourth paragraph, we'll understand the where how the instructor trained, and he was trained from Japan. And what was the first thing that went wrong with Amira when tried the pottery's wheel? So if we were to get right back to that, we'd notice that there was 10 people in our group, and our age ranges from 9 to 68. Tomoko, who had trained in Japan for 5 years, was patient and encouraging. She spent the first session simply getting us to handle the clay, squeezing it, rolling it, feeling this texture. Before we made anything else, she was explaining that understanding the material was more important than rushing to produce the finished object. By the third week, we had each made a small bowl using the coiling technique, and I was surprised at how satisfying it felt in holding something I had created in my own hands. In the fifth week, we had finally tried the potter's wheel. Tomoko demonstrated how to center the clay, and it looked effortless when she did. However, the moment I placed my hands on the spinning clay, it flew off the wheel and landed on the floor, which made everyone laugh. It took me several attempts before I managed to shape even a basic cylinder. The key is that Tomoko kept reminding us that was to apply gentle and even pressure. By the end of the course, I had produced 2 bowls and a vase that I was genuinely proud of. More importantly, I had discovered a hobby that I intended to continue for years to come. That being said, so what was the that being said, so the question behind what was the first thing that went wrong with the restaurant, and the claw flew off and when wheel the moment I placed it on them. And the last question to this question was, how did Amira say she benefited from the pottery's course? Gave at least 3 details. Raz and mentions how it was satisfying, how she felt proud of her creation, and she discovered a new passion or hobby, you could say. So that was a 3 out of 3, all according to the mark scheme's results. So from question number 7 is when we move on to the next passage or extract, you could say, and it talks about community fridges. So we have here A, B, C, D, 4 types of passages, and all these passages refer to answers which refer from question number 7, A, B, A2, IHI. So how a particular business benefits from the project, a problem that was resolved quickly, the suggestion that community fridges are not the best long-term strategy. These questions refer from community fridges, and they're pretty self-explanatory, I'd say. And moving to the questions, we could understand that 7A was C, 7B was B, then 7C was a D again, then 7D was A again, 7E was C, and 7F was B, 7G was the D, and 7H was D, 7I was B. So referring to the passage, we got to know that in many countries, growing number of community fridges are appearing in public spaces, such as libraries, community centers, and even on street corners, referring to the daily lives. And the question on the other hand, passage BC refers to the running community fridges required careful organizations. Volunteers check the fridge several times and they ensure the is stored safely and then nothing has passed its expiry date. To the next context, C. The environmental benefits are significant according to recent research. Approximately one third of all flood produced globally is wasted. And then D talks about the social impact of community fridges should not be underestimated. So they're all contrasting in their own terms. So since the questions weren't that tough, I would say this is not too much of a burden to understand. So we can move to the next question. So exercise 3 refers to the Great Desert Ride. So let's read this out. Have you ever thought about cycling across the desert? The Great Desert Ride is a 600-kilometer cylinder event that takes place each October in the Sahara Desert, most likely. Participants can enter as individuals or as a part of team of up to 4 riders. It has been described as one of the most physical demanding cycling challenges in the world. It could also be dehydrating if you think about it. I first heard about the event when a colleague showed me photographs from his experience in 2022. He completed the course in just over 5 days, which is impressive considering the average finishing time is closer to 7. The minimum age is to enter by 21, and all participants must provide a medical certificate confirming they are fit enough to take part. The entry fee of €850 covers meets and basic camping equipment, but cyclists must bring their own bikes. The route passes through some truly spectacular scenery, vast sand dunes, ancient rock formations, and occasional oases where riders can refill their water bottles. Oasis. Then competitors frequently mentions the night sky as one of the highlights. Far from any city lights, the stars are astonishingly bright. Another memorable aspect is meeting fellow riders from our 30 different countries. However, no outside assistance is permitted during the ride itself. So if your bike breaks down, you must fix it yourself. The organizers do provide medical support along the route, and satellite tracking devices are mandatory for safety reasons. The daily routine is tough. Riders head off at sunrise, typically around 5:30 a.m., to avoid the worst of the midday heat. Most aim to cover between 80 to 100 kilometers each day, with the long rest breaks in the early afternoons. The temperature can rise from 45 degrees Celsius, and hydration is a constant risk. So riders are required to carry at least 6 liters of water at all times. Food is simple but nutritious: dried fruit, nuts, energy bars, and pasta dishes at the overnight camps. Despite the hardship, most participants say that they would do it again. Crossing the finish line is a town of Marzouga is described as an unforgettable moment, sort of like a marathon, particularly because the local residents come out to cheer the riders in. And if the physical challenges doesn't appeal to you, the event also accepts volunteers who help out as water stations at campsites. Either way, it's an experience that stays with you forever. So, on that context, imagine you are going to give a talk to your classmates about the Great Desert Ride. Use words from the article to help you write some notes. Make sure notes under each heading. So, make short notes under each heading is the context. So, if we go for question number 8, we'll find what Araz has written based on this question. And he mentions the short notes on the minimum age is to enter 21. Participants must provide a medical certificate to prove that they are fit, and cyclists must bring their own bikes, and no outside assistance permitted during the ride itself. This was fabulously done by Aras and gives you the solid 4 out of 4 perfect score. Based on question number 9, we can see highlights of the Great Desert Ride. So now we are talking about the mindset of how things were, and here we have Ars's scripture answers that focused more on the night sky, where the stars are astonishingly bright, meeting fellow riders from our 30 different countries, and crossing the finish line is the town of the Marzouga. Again, perfectly jotted down. and mentioned as a short note. Question number 10. So question number 10 is Marka chose to research bamboo builders, and this refers to the new and next exercise 4. And here we have questions that refer from Marco chose to research bamboo buildings in Colombia because, and that's because it's B, the family member had a personal connection to bamboo houses. Then what is the main advantage of bamboo as a building material? And the answer is B as well. And the answer being is stronger than steel in certain ways. Question number 12, coming to the according to Professor Gutierrez, the biggest challenge is, and that would fall under convicting people that bamboo is a serious building material. Question number 13 refers to what does perception mean in line 25. So if you were to go at line 25 from this, you could either answer this based on question number 14 and 13, and that is B, of the way something is regarded. And then question number 14 refers to what does Marco suggest about untreated bamboo, and untreated bamboo refers to as it can be damaged by natural factors. The purpose of the blog is to, again, inform readers about the sustainable building materials. Again, another top 5 out of 5 for Aras. Well, actually it says 6. Yep. Then from exercise 5 we have question number 16, is where you recently attended a cooking workshop organized by your school, and you are to write an email to a friend about the cooking workshop. Make sure email explains what happened at the cooking workshop. It describes what you enjoyed most about the workshop, and tell your friends about something you found very difficult. And on that note, it's a 120 to 160 word cap email letter, and on that context, our candidate Araz mentions a fabulous email that highlights the following. And this is how it starts. Dear Afras, hope you are doing well. I have been eagerly waiting to write this email about a wonderful experience I had last week. There was a cooking workshop organized by my school, which I took part in. With an exclamation mark. The cooking workshop was open outside our school in a small enclosed area. Students that took part in this needed it to work together to provide food for donation. We all enjoyed a practical lesson provided by our chefs. The chefs were really experienced and generous, and we provided for a lot of charity donations. There were a vast categories of tasks. I chose to cook fried food like chips, fried rice, fried chicken, etc. Out of all the tasks, I really enjoyed this one, not only because I knew how to cook fried foods, but mainly because the popularity of fried food was sky high. During this workshop course, many students, including myself, had faced some problems. The thing that I found difficult is the way use of electric stoves. To reduce less pollution, school put electronic stove for cooking, which is good thing. But I had no experience in electric stove, which made it quite difficult. Anyways, be sure to reply back and tell me your thoughts on this cooking workshop program. Best regards, Araz. Alright, so on that note, here is where we come to the more critical, or you could say more subjective part of marking grades based on your answers. And I had to come down to a 10 mark out of 15, for which there were some range of vocabs which was there that gives him a nice score for his email. Although I should say that based on his write-up, he was not clear about the descriptions of what the workshop activities suggested doing. So despite the stove not working, we would recommend candidates to come up with their own solution and not just end at an abrupt cliffhanger of how things turned out bad, but not how you overcome the challenge. So perhaps ours ran out of word count, or you could say time was another factor. So perhaps coming down to efficiency and allocating time for each question is something very recommended to all candidates. And maybe even start with the writing first and then go through your scheming for comprehension so that you can use your time more effectively. On the other hand, there were some little bit of grammatical errors, some awkward writing obstacles, I'd say, where I had to reread your email and come down to a more conclusive context of how you wanted to write. But that being said, the structure was fine. the email does maintain how a real paragraph format should follow, and why a 10 out of 15 is a very suitable score based on these answers. But yeah, to make sure you get a higher Spanish score than 10, all you gotta do is making sure you are finishing off with a more sustained or suitable conclusive ending, and having the key points of content which is asked by the question. For example, in this case, exactly the methods and the activities you have done during the cooking is what the question mostly asks for, which I was kind of chipped down on while writing. Fall to the last question, which talks about the exercise number 6, where the question 17 talks about a scenario where in a class you have been discussing whether schools should replace all textbooks with tablets and laptops, and here are some comments from your classmates. So one of them, some screens can hurt your eyes and you can search for information instantly, but textbooks are easier to study from. But tablets are lighter to carry around. So that's the argumentative context we have from two to those people. And we are to now write an article for your school magazine, giving your views. And the comments above may give you some ideas and what you should use for some ideas of your own. And you could also use some ideas, and you should also use some ideas of your own. So you have the luxury to have your own take on this question, whereas your mark scheme will provide you with marks if you are to provide error and it's very reasonable. So write a 120 to 160 words again, very small, and you will receive up to 6 marks for the content and another 9 marks for the language being used, again resulting for a total of 15. In that context, ours comes with an answer that scores him a bandwidth of an 11 out of 15. So on that answer context, his answer replies that there was a recent debate on whether school should replace all textbooks with tablets and laptops. This seems a big change as far as for many years. Textbooks have been the primary source of knowledge. This debate has been discussed in our class. This transition is not all that bad to be bad. For starters, you can literally search for any information easily and instantly. In terms of weight, tablets can weigh less than books, which mean few cramped and heavy bags. If students behave and finish tasks, they get free time to work in the tabs, which can work as a rewarding benefit. There are also disadvantages, though, that follow. Firstly, screens can cause serious eye damage, especially if you are staring at it for 6 or 7 hours on average daily. Also, textbooks are more expensive to study from, as you can pinpoint any chapter on it and read from it. There is also a constant need to change your device, which can be a real hassle. So, in my opinion, keeping textbook as the primary source of knowledge is a best option. This can force kids to find and learn on their own, which can really sharpen a student brain. Textbooks are superior than technology. Alright, so on this answer script, in context to this write-up, your scores coming from the presence advantage of it has a very good strong presentation of how the advantages of tablets and information are given from the search and lighter weight. It has the disadvantages as well of the screen eye and how damage from the texts which have already been given, and the stimulus prompts of effectively using ads of its own, like the conclusive clearly keeps saying that which side he's taking. However, it has grammatical errors which gives him a little nudge down from the total top tier scores. However, I could also say that it lacks more exemplary elements, as the question said, that your write-up would give you another 9 marks from your own language used. This is where you have the room for your own experience, or you could say your own ideologies that you are giving the room to apply. And that's where the extra 3 to 2 marks have been lost, apart from the grammatical error. And hence, 11 out of 15 is a very reasonable score for this write-up. And that being said, that covers the entire 60 marks paper of the English as a Second Language, paper 1. I wish all the best to all the candidates who has taken part in the Fastpapers mock examination. May you all get much better than what you have achieved in the mock exams and end up getting the scores you are aiming to achieve. So good luck, guys. Hoping for the best. I'll get back to you with paper 2 soon, inshallah. Bye-bye.